Welcome to the second portion of the works of Philo. If you missed out on the previous videos, they were called On the Creation. You can go back, you'll find them under Works of Philo, Creation 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. We are now moving into a brand new section of the Works of Philo. This is going to deal with allegorical interpretation. Part of it will go back over the creation of the world, which Philo went over in the first book, but he will move on and for the first time begin to put names to things. Like he'll give you the definition behind the river Gihon and explain its purpose and what God meant by it, and he will do this with other rivers and other places. And this will occur throughout the works of Philo. This is why the works of Philo is so critically important to get done before the other books get done, because it's going to put meaning. For instance, if I go back and I read the Bible and I'm reading something on Moses, by going through and knowing what these different names mean and the purpose that God gave to each of these names, you can then go back to the Bible and allegorically interpret the Bible and put the Bible together the way it was intended, doing the same with the book of Yasher, the book of Enoch, and all the other books that God has prepared for mankind to study. That is the purpose behind the works of Philo. Very, very critical book that has to be read, and that's why I think the works of Josephus will be just as important, because I think that it will complement this book. So without further ado, we are going to begin Allegorical Interpretation 1. And the heaven and the earth and all their world was completed. Having previously related the creation of the mind and of sense, Moses now proceeds to describe the perfection which was brought about by them both. And he says that neither the indivisible mind nor the particular sensations received perfection, but only ideas, one the idea of the mind, the other of sensation. And, speaking symbolically, he calls the mind heaven, since the natures which can only be comprehended by the intellect are in heaven. And sensation he calls earth, because it is sensation which has obtained a corporeal and somewhat earthly constitution. The ornaments of the mind are all the incorporeal things, which are perceptible only by the intellect. Those of sensation are the corporeal things, and everything in short which is perceptible by the external senses. And on the sixth day God finished his work which he had made. It would be a sign of great simplicity to think that the world was created in 6 days, or indeed at all in time, because all time is only the space of days and nights, and these things the motion of the sun as he passes over the earth and under the earth does necessarily make. But the sun is a portion of heaven, so that one must confess that time is a thing posterior to the world. Therefore it would be correctly said that the world was not created in time, but that time had its existence in consequence of the world. For it is the motion of the heaven that has displayed the nature of time. When, therefore, Moses says, God completed his works on the 6th day, we must understand that he is speaking not of a number of days, but that he takes 6 as a perfect number, since it is the first number which is equal in its parts, in the half, and the third and 6th parts. And since it is produced by the multiplication of 2 unequal factors, 2 and 3, and the numbers 2 and 3 exceed the incorporeality which exists in the unit, because the number 2 is an image of matter being divided into 2 parts and dissected like matter, and the number 3 is an image of a solid body, because a solid can be divided according to a threefold division. Not but what it is also akin to the motions of organic animals, for an organic body is naturally capable of motion in 6 directions: forward, backwards, upwards, downwards, to the right, and to the left. And at all events, he desires to show that the races of mortal, and also of all the immortal beings, exist according to their appropriate numbers, measuring mortal beings, as I have said, by the number 6, and the blessed and immortal beings by the number 7. First, therefore, having desisted from the creation of mortal creatures on the 7th day, he began the formation of other and more divine beings. For God never ceases from making something or other. But, as it is the property of fire to burn, and of snow to chill, so also it is the property of God to be creating. And much more so, in proportion as he himself is to all other beings the author of their working. Therefore, the expression, he caused to rest, is very approximately employed here. Not he rested, for he makes things to rest which appear to be producing others, but which in reality do not affect anything. But he himself never ceases from creating, on which account Moses says, he caused to rest the things which he had begun. For all the things that are made by our arts, when completed, stand still and remain. But all those which are accomplished by the knowledge of God are moved at subsequent times, for their ends are the beginnings of other things, as, for instance, the end of day is the beginning of night. And in the same way we must look upon months and years, when they come to an end, as the beginning of those which are just about to follow them. And so the generation of other things which are destroyed, and the destruction of others which are generated, is completed, so that that is true which is said that, and naught that is created wholly dies, but one thing parted and combined with others produces a fresh form. But nature delights in the number 7, for there are 7 planets going in continual opposition to the daily course of the heaven, which always proceeds in the same direction. And likewise the constellation of the Bear is made up of 7 stars, which constellation is the cause of communication and unity among men, and not merely of traffic. Again, the periodical changes of the moon take place according to the number 7, that star having the greatest sympathy with the things on earth. And the changes which the moon works in the air, it perfects chiefly in accordance with its own configurations on each 7th day. At all events, all mortal things, as I have said before, drawing their more divine nature from the heaven, are moved in a manner which tends to their preservation in accordance with this number 7. For who is there who does not know that those infants who are born at the end of the 7th month are likely to live, but those who have taken a longer time, so as to have abided 8 months in the womb, are for the most part abortive births? And they say that man is a reasoning being in his first 7 years, by which time he is a competent interpreter of ordinary nouns and verbs, making himself master of the faculty of speaking. And in his second period of 7 years, he arrives at the perfection of his nature, and this perfection is the power of generating a being like himself. For at about the age of 14, we are able to beget a creature resembling ourselves. Again, the third period of 7 years is the termination of his growth. For up to the age of 21 years, man keeps on increasing in size, and this time is called by many maturity. Again, the irrational portion of the soul is divisible into 7 portions, the 5 senses, and the organ of speech, and the power of generation. Again, the motions of the body are 7, the 6 organic motions, and the rotatory motion. Also, the entrails are 7, the stomach, the heart, the spleen, the liver, the lungs, and the 2 kidneys. In like manner, the limbs of the body amount to an equal number: the head, the neck, the chest, the 2 hands, the belly, the 2 feet. Also, the most important part of the animal, the face, is divisible according to a 7-fold division: the 2 eyes, and the 2 ears, and as many nostrils, and in the 7th place, the mouth. Again, the secretions are 7: tears, mucus from the nose, saliva, the generative fluid, the 2 excremental discharges, and the sweat that proceeds from every part of the body. Moreover, in diseases, the 7th day is the most critical period, and in women, the catamenial purifications extend to the 7th day. And the power of this number has extended also to the most useful of the arts, namely, to grammar, At all events, in grammar, the most excellent of the elements, and those which have the most powers, are the 7 vowels. And likewise in music, the lyre, with 7 strings, is nearly the best of all instruments, because the euharmonic principle, which is the most dignified of all the principles of melody, is especially perceived in connection with it. Again, it happens that the tones of the voice are 7, the acute, the grave, the contracted, the aspirate, the lean, the long, and the short sound. The number 7 is also the first number which is compounded of the perfect number, that is to say, of 6, and of the unit. And in some sense, the numbers which are below 10 are either generated by, or do themselves generate those numbers which are below 10. And the number 10 itself. But the number 7 neither generates any of the numbers below 10, nor is it generated by any of them, on which account the Pythagoreans compare this number to the goddess, always a virgin, who was born without a mother, because it was not generated by any other, and will not generate any other. Accordingly, on the 7th day, God caused a rest from all his works which he had made. Now, the meaning of this sentence is something of this kind. God ceases from forming the races of mortal creatures when he begins to create the divine races, which are akin to the nature of the number 7. And the reference which is here contained to their moral character is of the following nature. When that reason, which is holy in accordance with the number 7, has entered into the soul, the number 6 is then arrested, and all the mortal things which the number appears to make. And God blessed the 7th day, and hallowed it. God blesses the manners which are formed in accordance with the 7th and divine light, as being truly light, and immediately declares them holy. For that which is blessed and that which is holy are closely connected with one another. On this account he says, concerning him who has vowed a great vow, that, if a sudden change comes over him and pollutes his mind, he shall no longer be holy. But the previous days were not taken into the calculation, as was natural, for those manners which are not holy are not counted, so that which is blessed is alone holy. Correctly, therefore, did Moses say that God blessed the 7th day and hallowed it, because on it he caused to rest from all his works which he had begun to make. And this is the reason why he who lives and conducts himself in accordance with the 7th and perfect light is blessed and holy, since it is in accordance with his nature that the creation of mortal beings was terminated. For the case is thus: when the light of virtue, which is brilliant and really divine, rises up, then the generation of the contrary nature is checked. And we have shown that God never desists from creating something, but that when he appears to do so, he is only beginning the creation of something else, as being not only the creator, but also the father of everything which exists. This is the book of the generation of heaven and earth when they were created. This is perfect reason, which is put in motion in accordance with the number 7, being the beginning of the creation of that mind which was arranged according to the ideas, and also of the sensation arranged according to the ideas, and perceptible only by the intellect, if one can speak in such a manner. And Moses calls the word of God a book, in which it is to come to pass that the formations of other things are written down and engraved. But lest you should imagine that the deity does anything according to definite periods of time, while you should rather think that everything done by him is inscrutable in its nature, uncertain, unknown to, and incomprehensible by the race of mortal men, Moses adds the words, when they were created, not defining the time when by any exact limitation. For what has been made by the author of all things has no limitation, and in this way the idea is excluded, that the universe was created in 6 days. On which day God created the heaven and the earth, and every green herb of the field, before it appeared upon the earth, and all the grass of the field, before it sprang up. For God did not reign upon the earth, and man did not exist to cultivate the earth. This day Moses is previously called a book, since at least he describes the generation of both heaven and earth in each place. For by his most conspicuous and brilliant word, by one command, God makes both things, the idea of mind, which speaking symbolically he calls heaven, and the idea of sensation, which by a sign he named earth. And he likens the idea of mind and the idea of sensation to two fields. For the mind brings forth fruit, which consists in having intellectual perception, and sensation brings forth other fruits, which consist in perceiving by the agency of the external senses. And what he says has the following meaning. As there was a previously existing idea of the particular mind, and also of the indivisible minds to serve as an archetype and model for either, and also a pre-existent idea of particular sensation, being, so to say, a sort of seal which gave impressions of forms, so before particular things perceptible only by the intellect had any existence, there was a pre-existent abstract idea of what was perceptible only by intellect, by participation in which the other things also received their names. And before particular objects perceptible by the external senses existed, there was also a generic something perceptible by the external senses, in accordance with a participation in which the other things perceptible by the external senses were created. By the green herb of the field, Moses means that portion of the mind which is perceptible only by the intellect. For as in the field green things spring up and flourish, so also that which is perceptible only by the intellect is the fruit of the mind. Therefore, before the particular something perceptible only by intellect existed, God created the general something perceptible only by intellect, which also he correctly denominated the universe. For since the particular something perceptible only by intellect is incomplete, that is not the universe, but that which is generic is the universe, as being complete. And all the grass of the field, he proceeds, before it sprang up, that is to say, before the particular things perceptible by the external senses sprang up, there existed the generic something perceptible by the external senses through the foreknowledge of the Creator, which he again called the universe, and very naturally he likened the things perceptible by the external senses to grass. For as grass is the food of irrational animals, so also that which is perceptible by the external senses is assigned to the irrational portion of the soul. For why, when he has previously mentioned the green herb of the field, does he add also and all the grass, as if grass were not green at all? But the truth is that by the green herb of the field he means that which is perceptible by the intellect only, the budding forth of the mind. But grass means that which is perceptible by the external senses, that being likewise the produce of the irrational part of the soul. To be continued in the next video.